Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, I'm meadsy69. Welcome back to the channel. Now, today's video, what is a Heavium? You might have heard the phrase before, a Heavium. So basically, it is a heavy tank that plays like a medium, you know, medium speed, or it's got good movability. But yeah, it's basically an E5. An E5 is a Heavium. So it's a mix between a medium tank and a heavy tank. And the E5 is a classic example of that. Now, it's not as good as it used to be after some changes, but in my eyes, it is still a good tank that can still perform. Now, the turret 200 millimeters, the hull 254 millimeters, that is still good armor for a Heavium. So if you can play it like a medium, then you're still going to get some bounces from the medium tanks. And of course, you've got the higher alpha, you've got the armor, so you can perform really, really well. DPM 2591. So yeah, obviously there are better tanks with better DPM, but it's still, in my opinion, a good tank even with that DPM. So that is just a 9.2 second reload, 258 AP pen, 340 on your heat and 60 on your HE. Your average damage, you've got a 400 alpha gun on that AP. Aim time is really, really good at 2.6, and so is that gun dispersion, 0.299. It has 8 degrees of gun depression with a top speed of 42 kilometers per hour. Now, the E5, not when it first was in the game, but because when it was first in sort of years ago, it had a massive hatch on top that used to make the tank sort of really, really weak. However, when Wargaming would remove that hatch, it became one of the most insane heavy tanks in the game, and it was like that for a number of years. Then Wargaming decided to nerf it a little bit. They wanted to change the tier 10s around, and it did lose its touch. But in my opinion, it can still perform. Like I went to drive it around, and I still did okay in the tank, to be fair. Yes, it's not as good as it once was. The mobility of the tank isn't as good as it once was. And on top of that, when Wargaming sort of changed certain things with it, they gave it the consumable where the speed boost, where you can go really, really fast for a short amount of time. But Wargaming seems to have removed that as well. So it doesn't quite have the speed as it once did. But you can still get into position. Like, you can still get on a ridge. You can still use that mobility. It's not as quick as it once was, but you can still use this tank as a Heavium. What I like about the tank is, if you want to play it with your medium tanks, if you want to go and support your medium tanks, it's still got decent enough speed to help you with that. But if you want to play it like a heavy tank, you can play it like a heavy tank. It's still got a decent amount of armor, and it's got a decent amount of DPM, so you can still play it like a heavy tank. If you can get yourself on a ridge, of course in flat ground like we are here, then yeah, you're not going to bounce too much, but you can still get bounces. I mean, I've got 2 tanks right in front of me, not really going to bounce too much from them. The Type 71 here is a one shot, so of course I want to clear him, and I want to get as close as I can to this E100 as possible. And this is where you will be able to get some bounces. You move your turret around, and you do have a very strong turret when you put it in the right position. If you're using the gun depression, you still can get quite a bit of bounces, which we've done. So we've blocked now 1000 damage. We've only got 1600 damage, but this game isn't really too much about the damage. So yeah, it's not as good as it once was. So if those of you that haven't played the tank yet, you would never have witnessed just how insane this tank really, really was. Like a couple of years ago, it was insane. It was one of the best heavy tanks in the game, and it's a tank that can compete with the medium tanks. Yes, the medium tanks got over 1000 DPM more than this, but they don't quite have the same armor profile as this. And again, the armor profile isn't as good as it used to be, but it can still work. As you've seen, we managed to get a block damage from the E100. We've got 1000 block damage in total. And that is something that you can do. So yeah, there is a couple of Heaviums out there. You know, you got the Type 71, which is an insane Heavium, in my opinion. It could be classed as a super heavy, or it could be classed as a medium tank. But again, that tank isn't the same as it used to be when it had that mobility, when you should just be able to do insane things in the tank. So yeah, this isn't the only Heavium. There are a few out there, but in my opinion, people are not sort of talking about the E5 as much now. Some people that used to play it all the time because of how insane it is, doesn't play it no more because it isn't quite as good as it used to be. But as you can see, like, even when you don't really do anything in the game, we've done nothing special, you can still break the 3K, 4K mark very, very easily. But yeah, it isn't the same as it used to be. The tank clearly isn't the same tank that it once was. But in my opinion, like, you could still perform in it. You could still have fun in it. It's just not as good as it once was. But yeah, put this tank into a certain position, you know, get your angles correct, use your gun depression, and you will still be able to get those the block damage. So the first shot there against the T95 E6, we managed to block. So we're going to push to the left side now, but as you can see, the mobility is still like a decent tank. Like, it's not sort of E100 sort of speed. It is a decent speed, as you can see here. For a heavy tank, sort of, we are running around the map pretty quickly, and this is why it is called a Heavium, because if you wanted to, you can go play with your mediums like quite comfortably. You could help them. And you've just got that armor profile to help. You haven't got the DPM as such, but you do have the higher alpha, the 400 alpha, and you do have armor. You do have armor, and that will help your mediums, you know. So yeah, it's still, in my opinion, a very good tank. It can perform in the battle, on the battlefield, just not as good as it once was. So what do you guys think of the E5 now? You like, it's been changed for a while. What do you honestly feel like? Is it a tank that you used to play quite regularly, and now you no longer play? Or is it a tank that you're just like, yeah, I'm not going to play this tank anymore because it's just shit? But yeah, I do honestly think it is a decent tank that can perform well. You just need to put it in the right position. You need to put it in the right position, get your angles correct, pick the right targets, and that is where this tank is best. And just rush when you need to. If you are going to rush and you are in the open, I do recommend go in, just face hug them like this, because that is where the armor profile can be very, very tricky for the enemies to deal with. So far we haven't bounced many. I mean, we've bounced 400 damage in this tank so far, but we've got ourselves a kill, we've got ourselves 2,000 damage, and just 2 tanks left alive. But you know, these guys are still, or, well, that guy isn't, but this last guy is still full hit points. You know, he's a very, very good tank, so I'm not going to take anything for granted at this point. It is the VZ55 who, as you can see, is full hit points. And yeah, the armor profile for me this game hasn't really done any justice, but you know, it was a kind of rush job. We sort of, as the green team, as a team, we did kind of rush that left side, and I think we've done pretty well, to be fair. I think we've rushed it pretty well, and it's just now a 4 versus 1. I'm doing decent to stay alive. However, he is going to get a shot here. I am now a one-shot, but I do have that support. And I think I've got better DPM than him. I do think I've got a better reload, so I will be able to get the shot in and just back up, and our guys do take him out. So again, a very, very easy 4,000 damage. We've done it with no problem whatsoever. And yeah, I still think it's a good tank. I still think it's a very, very good tank, but just not as good as it once was. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. I'm meadsy69, and I'll catch you all soon. Bye-bye. With